3 true life scary stories. Imagine driving alone on a deserted highway, the kind where the road seems to stretch on forever under a pitch black sky. The only sound is the hum of your engine, the only light from your headlights cutting through the darkness. It's the perfect night, or at least it seems that way. But then, in the distance, something catches your eye, something that shouldn't be there. What if, out of nowhere, the road you thought you knew tonight? We'll dive into 3 true life scary stories. Number 1. The mysterious girl in the church. In my early 30s, I was living about 30 minutes away from Manchester, New Hampshire. I had recently ended a 2-year relationship with my girlfriend, and it felt like I was going through a strange phase in life, wandering, trying to figure things out, perhaps searching for meaning without even realizing it. My grandmother was deeply religious, attending ceremonies with unwavering devotion, especially after my grandfather passed away. My grandfather had been a decorated veteran, well known and highly respected in our community. His passing left a significant void in her life. Despite her grief, her faith remained unshaken. She often told me she believed he had been reunited with God, and I could see how much comfort that brought her. That's why I started going to church with her every Sunday, partly to support her and partly because I felt like I needed some peace of my own. I truly admired her faith, a kind of faith that brought her real serenity. It struck me as something rare, something people spend their entire lives searching for, even if they can't always put it into words. One Sunday morning, he crossed paths with a captivating woman named Kaylee. Her dark curly hair cascaded down her shoulders, framing a face that held an air of mystery. From the moment he saw her, she seemed to carry an aura that drew him in. Over time, the two began to connect. Kaylee became the light in his otherwise turbulent life. Their blossoming romance seemed almost too good to be true, a respite from his struggles. But the illusion of perfection shattered one fateful evening. It began as a simple late-night drive, the kind of spontaneous adventure they often took to escape the mundane. The night air was crisp, and the road ahead stretched into darkness, illuminated only by the headlights of his car. They laughed, shared stories, and listened to soft music. Everything felt serene until it didn't. Out of nowhere, Kaylee's demeanor changed. Her laughter faded, and she fell into an eerie silence. At first, he thought she was simply tired, but then she began to mutter something under her breath, words in a language he didn't recognize. The strange cadence of her voice sent chills down his spine. "Kaylee, are you okay?" he asked, his voice trembling. She didn't respond. Instead, her eyes rolled back into her head, leaving only the whites visible. Her body tensed as if caught in an invisible grip. Panic coursed through him as he tried to pull the car over, his heart pounding like a drum. "Kaylee, talk to me!" he shouted, his voice cracking with fear. And then, just as suddenly as it began, she flung open the car door and bolted into the forest that lined the road. He yelled after her, but she didn't look back. Desperation gripped him as he grabbed a flashlight and followed, calling her name into the dense, shadowy woods. But she was gone. All that remained was a single item left on the passenger seat, an old silver cross necklace, its tarnished surface glinting faintly under the car's dome light. He never saw her again. In the weeks that followed, he scoured every possible lead, contacting her family, retracing their steps, and even consulting local authorities. But there was no record of Kaylee anywhere. No one by her name had ever attended the church. It was as though she had never existed. The cross necklace remains with him to this day, a haunting reminder of the mysterious woman who walked into his life and vanished just as quickly, leaving behind more questions than answers. Hit that subscribe button to join our fearless community of curious souls. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a story that will keep you up at night. DTC, where the creepiness never fades. Number 2, the encounter in the desert. A man, alone on a solitary road trip through the vast, barren stretches of Nevada, drove his aging, battered 2013 Volvo across the empty highway. The desert, usually peaceful and endless, now seemed hostile as the sky above darkened and began to churn ominously. A powerful storm gathered force, the winds whipping furiously and the rain slamming into the windshield like a barrage of cold, relentless fists. Knowing it was unsafe to continue, the man decided to pull over and wait out the storm. Little did he realize this seemingly simple decision would soon thrust him into a nightmare from which he might not escape. As he stopped the car, 3 shadowy figures appeared out of nowhere, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like knives. They circled his car, their presence menacing and unyielding. Without warning, one of them fired a shot into the air, sending a shiver down his spine. The driver's heart raced. He had no idea who they were or what they wanted, but the fear was palpable. The figures were erratic, their movements unpredictable. One moment they were close, and the next they vanished into the desert night without a trace, leaving the driver in a heightened state of confusion and fear. This sudden disappearance mirrored the eerie, unexplained events of the Dyatlov Pass incident, where hikers mysteriously perished under bizarre circumstances. The parallels between the 2 events were impossible to ignore. From a psychological standpoint, the driver's instincts kicked in. His mind screamed at him to flee, to put as much distance between himself and the mysterious figures as possible. Every part of him wanted to escape, yet he couldn't shake the urge to stay hidden, knowing that any wrong move might lead to his own disappearance. These primal instincts, fight or flight, were more than mere responses. They were a matter of survival. And in that moment, with the storm howling around him, he was acutely aware that his life might depend on his next decision. The silence that followed was deafening. His thoughts raced, and every minute felt like an eternity. He had no choice but to wait, his mind on high alert, wondering when the figures would return, or if they ever would. The desert, once a vast and tranquil landscape, had turned into a realm of uncertainty and danger. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so you'll never miss the terrifying adventures and eerie stories coming your way. Every new video is more disturbing than the last. Stay tuned for the next chapter in our dark, twisted journey. DTC, where the darkness never ends, and neither do the thrills. Number 3. The gas station in the ghost town Ryan and Mark are 2 good friends who decide to drive from Florida to New Jersey. Along the way, they stop in a small town that, according to the locals, used to be a bustling tourist area. However, from the moment they set foot on the main street, an eerie feeling comes over them. The streets are deserted, with not a soul in sight. The buildings are dilapidated, mostly abandoned, and the dim light of the street lamps only adds to the eerie silence. They try to find a cafe, or at least a store to rest, but all they can find are old walls with closed doors. They stop at a gas station, which seems to be the only one in town that is still operating. Suddenly, the gas pump, which has long been empty, suddenly starts pumping gas into their car without any control from them. A strange feeling, as if an invisible force was controlling everything. "This isn't right," Ryan said, feeling uneasy. Mark looked around. "This town isn't what it seems. Everything is too quiet, too eerie." The feeling of unease grew, and it became even more unnerving when a Toyota Sienna, the car they had seen earlier, pulled up in front of them. They felt as if they were being watched but couldn't figure out why. The encounter with Kaylee. As they stood near the gas station, a figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, long and curly hair, delicate but mysterious. She walked toward them, her eyes confident and seductive. "Hello, guys," she said softly, almost seductively. "You guys are new here, right?" Ryan and Mark looked at each other, feeling inexplicable. Unlike the sparse population they encountered along the way, Kaylee seemed to be from another world. She did not belong here, yet she seemed strangely familiar. "We were looking for a place to rest," Ryan replied, trying to keep his cool. "You may not find what you are looking for here," Kaylee said, her eyes scanning every detail of their bodies, as if observing things they could not see. "This town has secrets you cannot understand." Mark felt a cold sensation spread through his body. Although Kaylee seemed very charming, he could not shake the feeling that she was hiding something inexplicable. After meeting Kaylee, they continued their journey, but could not shake the feeling of unease. Every step, every path seemed to lead them back to where they started. In the dead of night, they decided to stop and rest. However, when they returned to the gas station, everything changed. There was no more dim light, no more noise of the night. Everything was numb, and Kaylee appeared again, this time with a cold expression, completely different from the charm she had at first. "You can't leave," Kaylee said, her voice cold and authoritative. "You've been here for a long time, and now you're staying forever." Ryan felt a sudden cold air blow through him, as if this space was no longer a normal place. The surrounding buildings began to change, windows shattered, and the space around them suddenly became blurry. Everything began to spin, and they seemed to be stuck in a loop that they couldn't escape. "Go!" Ryan shouted, but his voice seemed to have no effect. Everything around them began to change, the shadows around them shifting, as if an invisible force was controlling everything. The unraveling of reality. The tension reached its peak as Mark felt his body being pulled down, as if an invisible force was taking over him. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Everything became hazy, as if he were trapped in a dream he couldn't wake up from. Kaylee stepped closer, and Mark felt her eyes boring into his mind, tapping into every fear, doubt, and helplessness. "You can't run away," Kaylee whispered. "You came here for a reason, and now you're a part of this place." Mark tried to resist, but the more he resisted, the more he felt himself losing control. The space around him became black, with no way out. Everything began to spin, and he felt like he was sinking into a deep hole, unable to escape. Ryan stood beside him, trying to call out to him, but his voice was fading, as if the life inside him was fading. "Neither of you are getting out of here," Kaylee said, her voice stern and cold. "This town belongs to me, and neither do you." Suddenly, Mark felt a powerful force enter his head, as if some force was trying to pull him out of this state. He felt tired, helpless, but there was also another powerful feeling, that of resistance. He couldn't take it anymore. Feeling cold and numb, he had to find a way to escape. He turned to look at Ryan, then at Kaylee, and finally he realized that there might be only one way to leave this place: to face Kaylee and break the control she was exerting over them. The final confrontation Mark and Ryan faced Kaylee, the feeling of fear still coursing through their every muscle. Everything around them began to change again. The dilapidated buildings began to shake, as if an invisible storm was brewing. The space around them became cracked, as if reality and illusion were intertwining. "We're not here anymore," Ryan shouted, trying to unleash his strength. "This town doesn't have our rights." Kaylee stood still, not moving. She just looked at them with cold, calculating eyes. "You think you can leave?" Kaylee sneered. "This place was made of forgotten memories, ghosts that can never leave. You've been in this cycle for a long time." Mark felt like he was sinking into a bottomless pit. Memories, thoughts, all of them were repeating themselves, tying him to a reality he couldn't escape. The image of the Toyota Sienna appeared over and over again, like it had been with them for a long time, attached to some part of them. Nature, a wave of light rebelling from within them, a force they had never felt before. Mark felt his heart beat faster, like everything around him was being crushed. "No!" Marked, "No more fighting. We will not yield!" In the moment of overcoming, everything gradually calmed down. Every breath, every movement became clearer than ever. Mark turned to look at Ryan. Their eyes met. There was no path, only forward against all odds. Kaylee began to take a step back. The shadows around her began to break, dissolving into the air. The light from the lantern above shone down, forming a perfect circle of light, as if it were guiding them. But the revenge from this town had not yet completed its transformation. "This town will not let you go easily," Kaylee said, her voice fading as if being sucked into a deep hole. Ryan and Mark could no longer hear anything. They only felt the grip of the space around them, and in those harsh moments, they knew that they could not leave without facing the truth. Although Kaylee was gone, the grip of the ghost town remained. Mark and Ryan continued to move through the streets, letting go of their worries and doubts. But when they returned to the dump station, something strange happened. The machines had stopped working without any sign of any previous secrets. However, the lights were still dim, and the shadows still lingered in the air. "Did we get rid of her?" Mark sighed, but he still couldn't shake the feeling of being chased. Ryan looked around, feeling like something was still unfinished. They couldn't understand why all these strange events were happening. This town was unlike any other they had been to, and they knew that, despite getting rid of Kaylee, they were still stuck in some kind of vicious cycle that they couldn't escape. A loud noise rang out in the distance, causing them to reward themselves. They turned back to see the town in a peculiar darkness. A strong wind blew, carrying with it a cold gust. "We have to go," Ryan said, his voice urgent. "There's nothing good about this town." They had no time to hesitate. They rushed toward the car, their steps heavy but determined. At the same time, a soft light lit up the night sky, and in that moment, the town fell to pieces. The ghosts, the memories, all seemed to vanish into thin air. Mark and Ryan drove out of the ghost town, but they could not completely escape the dream they had experienced. And as they continued their journey, they knew that part of that town, the unsolved secrets, would always remind them of the image. The end? Or was it? Their story was over, but had they really escaped the ghost town? Will Kaylee's ghost and the town's strangeness continue to haunt them? The answer is still unknown, and they may never find the complete truth. As the darkness deepens and the stories grow more unsettling, we venture deeper into the unknown together. Each chilling tale brings us closer to the eerie truths lurking just beyond the veil of reality. The terror doesn't stop here, it only gets worse. Subscribe to DTC Dark Timeless Creeps now and stay on the edge of your seat. You won't want to miss what's lurking in the shadows next. Hit that notification bell and prepare for the next terrifying chapter. Remember, in the world of DTC, the creeps are always waiting, and they never rest. iMoon.